I would say that Flash's role is more of a plot device than an actual character, and I can understand the scorn for him for that. His role needs to be subtle but effective. There's a danger whenever you're writing in a new minor character into a production like this, that he will take over a little bit. You want him to be memorable but not too intrusive. You go too light on his influence on the overall plot, he seems incredibly superfluous and entirely unnecessary, and this is mostly true. If he's too heavy on the plot, it intrudes on the actions of the main characters, which we're all ostensibly here to see. It's a delicate balance. You need him to be more than a spear carrier, but less than Jar Jar. I think Flash nails that balance pretty good, to be honest. You think about his introduction at the start of the movie. Out of an entire sea of uncaring students that are just going on their day, knocking Twilight about, Flash is the first one who both notices Twilight as a new presence in the hallway, and when she gets knocked over, he helps her up to her feet. Okay? Then he goes on with his day. We see him brushed off later in the King's coffee shop, getting splashed with some kind of mocha. Right? And honestly, if you look at Flash's character design, how torn up his favorite t-shirt is, you gotta wonder what else. He's probably spilled a lot worse on that day. He's gonna brush off that chocolate just fine.
Speaking of
the whole action shows both his potential interest in Twilight Sparkle. You know, who is this strange new girl? She's kind of cute. I want to get to know her. And also just reminding us that he's just a laid-back guy. We know he plays the guitar. We know he's in a band among his friends at Camelot High School. This is about it. He's a nice guy. I can understand the arguments about him being flat, but the hatred, not so much. He does catch some very important exposition in the coffee shop scene, talking about his old relationship with Sunset Shimmer, which foreshadows his involvement in the plot later on in the movie.
Isn't this just awful? And after Pinkie Pie worked so hard to make things so perfect, why would Twilight Sparkle do something like this?
Why would you think Twilight was responsible for something like this?
Because I have proof.
I don't understand. This is clearly you in the photographs, is it not?
Yes, but
I think it should be fairly obvious that the school cannot let someone who would do something like this compete with the fourth formal crowd.
Where's Principal Luna? I found these in the trash can in the library. I thought you should see them.
Someone obviously combined these photos to make it look like Twilight was the one who trashed the gym.
I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, Flash. In light of this new evidence, you may, of course, continue your bid to be crowned the Princess of the Fourth Form.
thank you. You have no idea how important this is to me.
Full disclosure again, when I was conceiving this panel first and foremost at BronyCon 2 years ago, I actually got into a screaming argument with one other Brony solely on this scene. He said this scene was the one that absolutely ruined the experience for him because, in his words, he's done collage work. Anything that would involve snipping something out like that from a picture would involve loads of scraps. There's no way he would piece it back together in that Looney Tunes format. And my only thought was, really? That's the worst thing that you could think of? In a movie about magical transitioning portals from ponies to humans? That's the worst thing you could think of?
Has you not heard of an X-Acto knife?
Have you ever, do you realize the fact that snips and snails were the ones who probably did that? They would probably be just talented enough to do that good of a job and just stupid enough to leave the evidence lying around. I really don't like people who hate fantasy. Anyway, when it comes to Flash Sentry as a character, I don't think the terms romantic interest or love interest properly describe him and his role in the story. The love thing never really goes beyond a puppy love dynamic between him and Twilight. It's adorable and very, very sweet. And one of the things I actually really like, it doesn't amount to a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. What Flash Sentry is ultimately to Twilight in this movie is an emotional anchor. Let's recall one important conflict that the movie establishes, and it's a conflict not between Twilight and Sunset, but Twilight and herself coming off of the heels of the season 3 finale.
What's wrong, Twilight? No, Spike. I'm just worried, I guess. Princess Cadence was given the Crystal Empire to rule over. What if now that I'm a princess, Celestia expects me to lead a kingdom of my own?
That would be awesome!
No, it would not. Just because I have this crown and these wings, it doesn't mean I'll be a good leader.
Sure you will, Twilight.
But come on, you should get some shine.
Big deal, Nora.
The gentleman who just walked in, I like your style, sir. We're wearing the same shirt. Anyway, so here we have Twilight worrying about what new responsibilities are in store for her as a princess. If she can live up to both being a princess in action as well as a princess in spirit or a princess in power politically. Flash Sentry provides the first real connection that she has to the new human world before her that's not one of her established friends already. It's the sight of him at the climax of the film among Sunset Shimmer's zombie hordes that really cements Twilight's resolve, gives her a firmer reason to stand up to Sunset, who's in full demonic transition at this point. Not just because she wants her crown back, but now Sunset is hurting people that she cares about, and she will not let that stand. Pretty much, the only thing Flash has going against him at the end of the day, he's just, nice guy is really the only label that can be consistently applied to him. I get that. I get the opposition to that. He's very much a flat character, but that's okay. In a world of dynamic personalities and extremely colorful characters, literally in this case, a nice balance is achieved by having somebody play the straight man opposite them. Personally, I cannot dislike him at all just because of how he's presented. He's laid back, but he's not stereotypical about it. He's cool in the sense that, he's a rock star in many ways, but the other characters in the movies are not fawning over him. He's not given admiring looks by all the girls as he walks down the hall. He's just another student. He's not overly confident about his place in the social hierarchy, nor is he an arrogant jackass about it. He's sweet and shy, but kind of hormonal. He's a teenage boy. And when he gets down to crushing on Twilight very hard, he's just as adorable in his own awkward way. And I wouldn't have him any other way.
Watch this all day.
I really could watch this all day. All right. So, he is easily the most contentious part. Now I'm going to have to break my rule from earlier and get into a little bit of nitpicky stuff, because now I want to talk about Sunset.
Woo!
Here's the biggest, most central argument that everything else stems from. When people talk about Sunset and talk about how much they don't like her. Sunset Shimmer's the worst villain ever! She's so flat and uninteresting and her evil plan sucks! With an arc roughly equivalent to something 3 or 4 episodes long, a sustained story like this film is only as good as its main villain. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to start with addressing Sunset Shimmer as we first meet her, not as a pony, but as the teen girl.
You interrupted.
Well, I did, and I was about to get it before you swooped in and ruined everything. You shouldn't pick up things that don't belong to you.
It doesn't really belong to you either.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
That's what I thought. It's as good as mine, and you know it. You really are pathetic. It's no wonder your best friends are all stray animals.
How dare you speak to her that way?
What did you say?
Sure. How dare you speak to her that way?
You must be new here. I can speak to anyone any way I want.
I love how much that scene alone tells us about Sunset as a person and her position in the high school hierarchy. Other students actively and visibly afraid for their lives when she comes walking down the hallway. It's wonderful. She's definitely cut from that typical mean girl archetype, right? Bossy, arrogant, self-assured, high on her throne, and absolutely sure that nothing is going to rise to challenge her. Sunset Shimmer's very obvious fatal flaw in this whole movie is pride, specifically hubris, the pride that comes before a fall. It's very stereotypical on the surface, but that fact alone hints at a much greater depth to her as a character. She's actually got a lot going on with her character from square one. And let's talk about composition. At her core, Sunset Shimmer as a villainous character shares a lot of different traits with seemingly, if not literally, every other antagonist, major and minor, that we've encountered in the course of My Little Pony over those first 3 seasons. Let me explain. She was once a pupil of Celestia, very, very close to the princess, ends up corrupted by negative magic, gives herself over to the darkness, and is beaten by the elements of harmony. Right there we have Nightmare Moon. She's a smug, very skilled magician, a counterpart to Twilight in many ways, equally on her level, much like Trixie. Okay. She uses her manipulative skills to drive a wedge between the friendships and the unified power of the main 5, the humane 5, I should say, and completely destroys their friendships, much like Discord. She's successful in ultimately discrediting Twilight over the course of the film in front of her peers, much like Queen Chrysalis. And also, much like Queen Chrysalis, she's secretly a monster in nice packaging. And at the end of the film, she makes use of evil, dark magic to utterly enslave the whole school to her will, King Sombra. An argument actually could be made that T-Rex kind of works retroactively, and or rather, T-Rex takes a page from Sunset Shimmer. Sunset is actually the first My Little Pony villain that we see who attempts to actively deal with Twilight and her friends explicitly using lethal force.
Step aside. Twilight has tried to interfere with my plans one too many times already.
Yeah, that ain't a water balloon she's checking out. But talking about them interfering with her plan, I hear this also as an argument against Sunset. What was her plan? It just seems so complicated when you break down all the things that have to happen in order for her to end up with the crown at the end of the film. Like, why does she need to win an election? Why not just steal the crown back from the principal's office once it ends up there? Why the frame job on Twilight? Why try to smash the portal? Wouldn't that sledgehammer she's wielding at the end all just go through it? All of this seems so needlessly complicated because they're all complications. They're all complications to Sunset's original plan. There's a wonderful trope called an indie ploy, and it was made famous and named because of this man.
Meet all Mars. Be ready for me. I'm going into that truck. I really don't know if this as I go.
I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. The term indie ploy, as made famous by Mr. Indiana Jones, describes a situation where a character's seemingly meticulous planning and execution of the plan is done entirely on the fly as a result of endless complications springing up in their path, and in some cases, blowing up in their face. The reason that so many steps have to happen for Sunset to wind on top is rather simple. Sunset never meant for any of them to happen in the first place. Again, a very prideful character, not conceiving of the possibility that her initial plan to steal Twilight's crown, the element of magic, could in any way screw up or be interfered with. Here's basically the extent of Sunset Shimmer's grand plan. Step 1, acquire crown. Step 2, put on crown. Step 3, profit. For all that she's set up to be a counterpart to Twilight, as someone who's extremely intelligent, a meticulous planner, and very well organized, Sunset's pride prevents her from anticipating that she would screw up any part of her execution of the theft. As soon as the crown, as soon as she's tackled by Twilight in the opening scenes of the film, and as soon as that crown flies out of her possession and through the portal before her, she has to make up her evil plan as she goes. The reality of the high school experience, as well as the actions of Twilight and her friends constantly interfering with her plans, forces her to continually adapt, and you see she gets more desperate with each iteration. Even in this scene, you can see, if you freeze frame, a look of, oh crap, on Sunset's face shared by all of the main six when she realizes, oh wait, this isn't going according to plan. She quickly recovers, but it takes some time. Basic breakdown. Excuse me. Sunset starts off the whole movie still going according to plan, right? The crown is out of her possession, but she's assured of victory in election for fall formal princess because she's so intimidated in the school that no one's going to run oppose her. Twilight steps up to challenge her, so she goes her usual route of discrediting and muckraking to win legitimately. I love also that Sunset's plan basically amounts to a negative campaign ad. It's really fun. Twilight and her friends bounce back again. You know, they come up with their own flash mob to get people more interested in Twilight. So what does she do? She resorts to actively sabotaging the gym. That fails. The time for the formal comes around, she resorts to taking hostages. She kidnaps Spike. That fails again. Twilight will not give up the crown. She resorts to one last bluff. And that's all that the sledgehammer is. It is one last bluff to try and get Twilight to surrender. All of that fails to work. And it's only then, when she has no other options, that she resorts to actual physical force to get what she wants. Sunset reminds me, over this whole exchange, one character that I thought of, if you've all seen the film Kung Fu Panda, the character of Tai Lung. Sunset very much fits the mold of sort of an arrogant kung fu guy in an old wuxia film. She's a talented but very arrogant upstart. She insists that power and respect and glory is her due by her position and her natural abilities. She's interested in shortcuts to that if the master will not progress in the way that she wants. She ends up brought low by her own hubris and finds out way too late that the path she's heading down is one of self-destruction. And I absolutely love this sequence when her evil plan finally comes to fruition and she has that sudden realization, oh no.
More power than I could ever imagine.
Whoopi, destroyer of worlds. This sequence, I always get chills down my spine whenever I see this sequence. Just for that one close-up shot of Sunset with tears streaming down her face as pure power overwhelms her completely. And she just gives over to this demonic presence. I love it so much. And it's a theme that gets repeated throughout the Equestria Girls film series. The idea of power you don't understand, and because you don't understand it, you can't control it. I find it interesting, though, that people complain that the next part of her plan, that she immediately goes to crafting an army of zombified teenagers to then take over Equestria. There's not a lot of argument that I can make for that case, except as future examples will show, it seems like, I guess, whenever a character does abuse specifically dark or negative magic, I guess the compulsion to dominate the whole world just comes naturally. Really, everything that speaks to Sunset's motivation is to rub it in Celestia's face. That I have acquired this power, I am worthy of this power, how dare you keep it from me? But we eventually resolve to, there's no sense that, there's a sense that the power is speaking through her, it's not her actual intention. And it usually comes up from this close-up shot of the pain of her transformation, the tears streaming down her face. There's clearly not what she intended. And she winds up beaten and broken because of it. So...
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was another way.
I didn't know there was another way. This movie meant a lot to me personally. I understand how awkward it is to come into this and me trying to come forward with logical arguments for my position based on an inherently biased position from the get-go.